Americans for Prosperity is committed to breaking barriers across the country, and Americans for Prosperity is growing across North Dakota. By calling on lawmakers to reduce taxes, spend less, improve health care, and provide second chances, we can empower all North Dakotans to rise. We're fighting for you. Join us today so we can make North Dakota the best state to live, work, and raise a family. Americans for Prosperity paid for this ad. Well, we're reading a lot of headlines about oil prices and the economy and coronavirus, and, well, frankly, it's all a little scary. I will admit, I cover this stuff professionally, and I'll tell you, I'm reading some of the headlines, and I felt a little scared. Obviously, here in North Dakota, we are a commodity-based economy. Some of this turmoil, this global turmoil, not just in the energy sector, but our ag sector. We ship a lot of stuff globally. If a lot of those trade lines are going to be shut down, that could severely impact North Dakota. And obviously, with the oil prices tanking for the moment anyway, that's a serious thing for our energy industry. And speaking of the energy industry, Ron Ness, president of the North Dakota Petroleum Council, is here to talk with me about that. And Ron, how are things going?
Well, Rob, it's been a rough week, and actually it's really been a rough first quarter. Oil prices had slid almost 25% prior to the last week from the start of the year, and the economics were starting to get rougher and rougher as the prices had slowed down. You lose 25% of the price of your commodity off the top. There goes whatever upside there was. So, but this last series of events over the last few days here has been really pretty dramatic. And isn't it always interesting, Rob, when there's an opportunity for OPEC or those in the Middle East to kind of stick a pin in the balloon at just the right time? They always seem to do that. And OPEC was going to meet, and then, of course, Russia did this, and then Russia didn't do that, and then all of a sudden Saudi Arabia says, oh, you want to play that way? We're going to up our production, basically take the prices down. And now I see again, late yesterday, they said, well, that's not even enough. We're going to go from 10 million barrels a day to 12.5 million barrels a day, further crush the, ultimately the targets the American oil shale producer, which is us here in North Dakota. So the good news is the Bakken is still one of the best resources in the world. It's going to be resilient, but it's not going to be without impacts. And, I'm hoping for a bounce in the right direction here in forthcoming days, but it's a pretty serious round of events here.
I have been seeing, just some of the social media chatter as this is going on. Some people... And the posts that I saw were directing this at Governor Doug Burgum. In his State of the State address recently, he was talking about how the energy sector makes North Dakota more economically resilient than a lot of other places. And somebody was revisiting that on Twitter, as you can imagine, and revisiting is maybe a kind way of putting it. But, I think there is a question there that's maybe in the minds of expressed probably more in a kinder way. But, essentially this Twitter person was saying, well, where's our resilient economy now? If oil makes us so resilient, look at what's happening now. How would you respond to people like that who are saying, listen, this we're not resilient and the oil industry is tanking and everything's terrible? What are your words for those people?
Rob, we are and have been operating at an economic threshold in the state that's so far above what any traditional ceiling had been in North Dakota. And you can look at all the demographics of population growth, of revenue growth, of including spending, by the way, on all aspects. We were able to fill back up the coffers after the downturn of 2015 again, operating at a very high level of economic activity. And you're going to have fluctuations that occur, but we're still going to produce 1.5 million barrels of oil a day. We're still going to produce 3 BCF of gas a day. What's going to vary greatly now, of course, is the amount of tax revenues we get from that. What's going to vary greatly is maybe the impacts on the new dollars of exploration. We've got to attract $20 million of capital in North Dakota every single day to continue to operate 50 drilling rigs and do the completions that we do in order to continue growing at the pace we've been growing. So, we tried to send a message a month or so ago to the Legislative Budget Committee that all things can't go up forever, and you've got to prepare yourself to not just consider that we're going to grow by 4% or we're going to have money to fund the budget that way going forward. So, I'm not overly concerned today about the state budget. I'm much more concerned about the economic health of the industry, the 55,000 direct and indirect jobs that this industry represents in North Dakota, and all of those secondary businesses and activities that occur. But these are catastrophic market collapses that affect our nation's energy security. Little occurrences about who was right or who was wrong in a situation like this where you see a market collapse. That's pretty petty politics. First of all, we got some big picture issues, but the fact of the matter is that the state is, I believe, about 63% of our revenue reliance comes from oil and natural gas today.
And that's just too much, right? I mean, that's just too much. I mean, I love the oil and gas industry. I want it to grow. I want it to succeed. I want it to do all the things. But we're just too dependent on revenues from the oil industry, aren't we?
I tend to agree with that. And then we start looking at things like you additionally eliminating further taxes. And it's times like this where people in agriculture do this every day. You cannot just project in a commodity-based world that this is going to be the norm forever. You've got to be able to plan in the contingencies, and you've got to sustain all multi-legged stools. And any of these concepts that you have to be conservative in your spending, you have to have large reserves, you have to have rainy day funds. That was the purpose for the legacy fund. Somewhere down the road, it wasn't when revenues decline or when you hit situations where there's really rough periods that you have a source there to tap into. But it's not one that we just go, it's not a quick savings account where it's a slush fund where, we need a little more money. We'll just keep spending, but we'll take it from here. So, but, really what we ought to be focusing on is, how do we make sure that, we continue to keep the businesses operating, keep the drilling rigs and the wells producing to the extent possible. And it becomes a question for these operators today is, do I want to produce my barrel of oil when it's worth $23? This, in my opinion, is a $70 to $80 barrel of high-quality Bakken sweet crude oil. And can I afford to produce it at $20? Maybe I have to for a while. Every producer is going to be in a different situation. They're all in their boardrooms now. I suspect as each day goes by, you're going to see companies coming out. I saw one announced this morning a $500 million reduction in their CapEx spending. They're going to have to take steps to manage their way through this, just like you and I would manage without, our revenue stream coming in or being cut by 70%. You got to manage your way through that, and let's just hope that there's some recovery in this market.
What could we do in terms, or maybe we've already done it? And obviously there's a lot here we can't control. We can't control the coronavirus situation. That has nothing to do with North Dakota policy. We can't really control what Russia or Saudi Arabia are doing. Are there things we could be doing here in North Dakota to help protect our industry, this important industry that contributes to so many jobs, that contributes so much tax revenue? Is there something we could do to help even out some of these ups and downs of world events?
Well, Rob, I don't really think that there's immediate actions and things in that nature. But the things that we can do is we've tended in recent years, I think we've created a tremendous amount of empathy towards the revenues, the jobs, the economic activity generated by oil and gas specifically, and we've got to maintain that positive business climate. North Dakota is a place where people want to invest, they want to do business. We've got to, as Governor Burgum's big initiative is, we've got to innovate, not regulate, and economically fundamentally punish companies. That the mantra is, just charge more to the oil industry. Charge more for the road permits, charge more for the for this, for that, and other things. Go back 40 years and charge because of a court case. All of those things builds in a business climate, which over a period of 20 years, we had created a very positive business climate here. I believe we've begun to see significant erosion in that business climate because of empathy that the dollars are always going to be there. Don't worry, they'll just keep investing. And in the core of the Bakken, it's the best rock in the planet. As you move outside that core of the Bakken, we have to compete everywhere, every given day, and we should want to do that every single day for every business and every agriculture, coal, wind, everybody, tourism, all of those things. That's how we built the North Dakota economy and the North Dakota way. And frankly, I think that we've begun to see some erosion of that. And that's what we can do in North Dakota.
What is, as a practical matter, and the coronavirus story, and all of this is so very fast moving, and I think sometimes it's hard to know: is this going to be a blip? Is this just going to be a moment in time, and then it's back to normal? Maybe once some of the fears subside, or is this going to be something more long lasting? What, as a practical matter, what can North Dakotans expect to see in terms of impacts in their community from some of the stuff's going on nationally? I mean, are there going to be immediate impacts? Can you paint that picture for us?
I think it's a little early to paint that picture, and I think it depends upon the longevity of this. But I would emphasize, let's not put all of this on the coronavirus.
Sure.
There was an oversupplied market of oil in the world, and we have seen that price decline begin. You have an economic slowdown that's happened over a period of several months here, but some of that certainly started in China with the coronavirus. But now you've got these actions by OPEC and specifically Saudi Arabia that have decided to really utilize this to their advantage to try and essentially crush the American shale producer. When this happened in 2015, it was a much different time. We were coming off $80 or $100 oil. We had a lot of efficiencies that were possible, and we were able to take advantage of those. We were able to increase our production by put the accountants back to work to create the efficiencies. We put the engineers focusing on putting together the best technologies to increase production. So we lowered costs, increased production. We made this a $50 to $55 oil play versus a $75 to $80 oil play. Those opportunities aren't as omnipresent today, and we've been through a much rougher period. So recognize this is a very challenging period, whether you're a service company in western North Dakota, or whether you're a producer in many Fargo, Grand Forks businesses are completely reliant on oil and gas for their economic well-being now and across the entire state. There's companies that have individuals that have found their business niche in the supplying, servicing, supplementing the oil and gas industry. So the hit isn't on just don't think of the oil producers, and when you think of an oil producer, you think of the tens of thousands of people that live and work in western North Dakota. So the tendency is not have a lot of sympathy, and we're not certainly asking for sympathy, but it's about people, Rob. It's about jobs. It's about businesses, and it's about all of those things. So the amount of contributions to the state tax rolls are far down my list today in terms of concerns.
Well, certainly. I certainly agree with that. I mean, the thing is let's face it, tax revenues are downstream from the economy anyway, right? If North Dakota's economy is thriving, it's going to be kicking off plenty of tax revenues. We don't really need to worry about that. We need our economy to keep thriving. Just to sum up some of what you said, I mean, what you're basically saying is when we had a bit of a price war in 2015, there was a lot of low-hanging fruit in terms of efficiencies that could be put in place, coming down from $80 to $100 barrel oil. There was a lot of things you could do. There's a lot of things maybe you don't have a lot of incentive to do if you're getting $100 a barrel for your oil. Maybe you're not that worried about efficiency. When prices come down, you get more worried about efficiency. What you're saying essentially is we've already implemented a lot of the efficiencies that it's possible to implement. So this time around, the number kind of is what it is in terms of price, break-even price.
Yeah, I really think it is, and of course everybody's got a little different situation, their debt structure, their capitalization. But at the end of the day, the economic health of the industry is nowhere near what it was in 2014 going into this. The efficiencies and the increases in production are obviously been accomplished. So it's more difficult. It's a much more difficult road ahead the longer this thing continues to exist. And you know, again, when you look at the assets and the resources across the country, the Bakken is still as well poised as, you know, basically the Permian and Texas and the Bakken and North Dakota are well poised to, you know, succeed and have success in terms of maintaining the activity level possible than many other plays across the country. So we've got some advantages there, but certainly it's going to be a rough road ahead.
How long until, I mean, right now, I know that these companies don't make, you know, big investment decisions or big hiring decisions or what have you based on the news of the moment. You know, they're trying to forecast longer term trends. So how long until what's going on right now is no longer the news of the moment and is maybe the new normal for a while? How long does this go on until some of the companies in North Dakota start charting a different course?
Well, I suspect that companies started yesterday morning in their planning meetings and their discussions on, you know, usually like any good planning entity, they have, you know, step A through B or C or whatever, and they started implementing them as this moves forward. They said, okay, here's the first step, here's the second step, here's the third step, and you know, some of those may have timelines or economic thresholds put upon them, but I suspect we'll start seeing some of those as the week, if the week drags out here without much significant upside, we'll begin seeing those things. I already saw one large North Dakota oil producer announce a reduction in capex of $500 million this year for not just their North Dakota stuff, but all of their stuff and stuff. You know, hopefully that's more elsewhere than it is in the Bakken. I haven't dug into it to see if that's the case.
Well, Ron, I'm hoping for some better news by the end of the week. I think we all are, but certainly appreciate your time checking in, and hopefully, again, we get some better news by the end of the week.
Rob, if you live in North Dakota, whether you're in agriculture or energy, or you're hoping it's spring, you got to be an optimist, right?
Well, that's right. Spring is always coming. At some point.
That's right.
We may be in for a couple blizzards yet, but spring's always
and
coming.
These things are going to happen over time, and
we've weathered them before. I mean, it was painful,
Absolutely.
but we made it, and you know, we'll be okay. I don't think there's reason to panic, but there is reason to keep a weather eye out towards what's going on. Ron, again, thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thanks.